most popular workbooks, the Learn Bouncy Brush Lettering for large brush pens, and the classic first round workbook, the Learn Brush Lettering for large brush pens. So do you see the difference between the two? Today I'm going to talk about why bouncy lettering is harder to learn than the regular classic style. So I also have my Dream Pens. My Dream Pens have 2 tips, and I have my small brush pens as well. And I also am using my grid practice pad. And I took a piece of paper out. Most of you know why. Okay, so let's take a look at the basic understroke for the large brush pen. This is the key. This will show you why it is more difficult to learn bouncy brush lettering. So I'm going to zoom in. The basic stroke underturn. I'm going to use a large brush pen with the Dream Pen, and it starts with a thick downstroke. It transitions into a light upstroke. This is the stroke that is more challenging to learn in the bouncy brush lettering, and why. So in my workbook, you have tracing paper. I'm going to put this on top. I'm going to grab my orange. I haven't used orange lately. So for the underturn, I'm going to push down, release pressure, and climb up again. You can see that. Push down, release pressure, and climb up again. This is the only underturn you need to learn for your alphabet, and that's the letter I, the letter T, the letter U. It's always the same. Now let's look at the bouncy brush book. Okay, so I'm going to open it up. It's set up exactly the same way as the other one. You have your worksheets in the same order with the tracing papers, and let's go look at the underturn here. So look at the difference here. So there's a couple reasons why the bouncy lettering is more challenging to learn, but in the end it's easier to write after you learn it, and that is because the underturns are narrower at the bottom. So you have to have a nice transition, which is more challenging to get when it is narrow like this. The other reason that it's more challenging is because you actually have many different sizes of the underturn that you use when you are writing letters. So if you look here, this is the one size only for the classic style. If you are learning bouncy lettering, I'll just take this out so it's clearer to see. You are going to have, your underturn like this. And you are also going to sometimes change this and have it drop lower, release pressure, and come up. And sometimes drop lower, and depending on your lettering style, you might make this really tall, like this. It all depends on how dramatic you want your bounce to be. So instead of learning just a single underturn like this all the time that stays the same, you now have to constantly change the height of this underturn. So let's write a word. Actually I'm going to show you this on the grid practice pad first. So I'll move this over, and I'll bring out my small brush pen as well. Okay, so let's say I have this, my grid sheet. If I'm using the large brush pen, I will probably work with, let's start with 3 squares high, but probably 4 squares high is best for sizing. And we're going to actually add like different depths to this underturn, like I just showed you in the workbook. So let's start out with the first one is just like this, right? 3 squares high. The next one will make it longer. Push, release, 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 and come up. The next one will make longer. Push, release, 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 and come up. And the next one longer. Release pressure and come up. So you have the exact same transition every time, but you are changing the height of that stroke. Now, let me just grab my small brush tip pen. I'm going to do the same, except now we're going to deal with 2 squares high and then adjust this a little bit. Okay, So I'm holding it high on the barrel like I usually do. I'm gonna go push, release, and come up. And then push, release, and come up. I'm keeping the same shape. It's nice and narrow on the bottom, but I'm just making it longer or taller below that baseline. And that is a key to bouncing. Here's my X height. And I'm going to drop this lower and lower and lower. The classic style is simply this, always the same at the X height. Always the same, never changing. This one, the underturn for the bouncy style changes all the time, and that's why it's harder to execute. So let's look at a couple of, I'm gonna write it some words. So I'm gonna write, let me just mark my lines here. Let's write the word lettering. So lettering bouncy, here is my X height. Okay, and let me just, I'll do my L first. I'm gonna drop it below and come up. You see that underturn? And I just went a little bit below, about 1 square. I'm gonna keep my T there. I'm gonna drop my T lower and come up. Just like here, I went lower and higher. And the next T, because I want it to bounce, down, up, this one's gonna be higher, but it's the same underturn. It is just changed to a different height. My E I'll keep there. My R, I'm gonna drop lower. There's that underturn. I'm gonna move this over. My I want, this is lower, my I will be higher, but it's gonna be an underturn. You see that? And then I'm gonna do my N. There's another underturn, I'm gonna go lower. And now I'll have my G on the X on the baseline. There. Okay. So look at the underturn and how many times we change it when we are writing with a bouncy style. That makes it really, really quite challenging. Now, whether you're using a small brush pen or a large brush pen, it doesn't matter. When you are practicing, the best thing to do is not just practice one underturn. It's to practice a series going up and down at different sizes, not up and down, working with different sizes. So when you're practicing your bouncy strokes, make sure you have your X height marked. And I'm just gonna show you the underturn. So we'll deal with 3 squares high. So do your underturn, release and exit. Do another one, make it longer and longer, maybe 4 different sizes, and then come back. So a little bit shorter, or you can come back to the first one and make it, oopsies, I didn't go very far with this. Down and up and down and up. So you can do this gradually, or you can actually just start like the smallest again, 3 squares, 4 squares, 5 squares. And do the same with your small brush tip pen. So my small brush tip pen is going to start at 2 squares high, go down more and more. It's a small brush pen, so I'm just going down by half, and then coming up and higher and higher. All right? And I do recommend you keep this V shape and not the U shape. It is quite challenging to create bouncy strokes with that really rounded classic style shape. Okay? So I hope this helps you in practicing your bouncy lettering. It's a lot of fun to do bouncy lettering, but it is actually harder to learn. But you can learn it and play around with it and just do your practicing every day. Thanks for watching.